Hi, friends, and welcome. I am your hot mess of a host, Mary Hendricks from The Very Merry Life, your new mom friend that soon will feel like an old friend. Twice a week, every week, I want you to come and join me as we cover moments in motherhood, marriage, sex, and more. Some moments worth savoring, others worth surviving, all with a laugh, pep talk, or F-bomb every now and again. I want you to come as you are, but leave the sugarcoating behind because, guys, we know how sweet it already is. So what do you say? Up for picking some daisies? All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back. Hi, Andrea. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Love your podcast. Love following you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited. Did we reschedule this? I think I rescheduled this because originally I don't know what happened, but I'm sure there was either a sickness or some sort of chaos.
You were mom and hard. You had a kid activity. It happened. So I totally understand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I am pumped. I'm pumped just to talk because I know that you're in the fitness world and you're into all of that. I used to be involved in that before I started the world of this and just motherhood. I worked as a full-time personal trainer and I don't really do that anymore, but I still love it. And I love it in realistic terms of being able to incorporate that into our life, but also just having conversation because you and I both are moms of three and we're just going to have good conversation about everything that we are passionate about. So it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Tell everyone about yourself first and then we'll get into it.
Yes. So my name's Andrea Herbert. I'm a part of Gold Ivy Health Co. That's where you'd find me on socials. And what it is, it's a health company that basically I created with my business partner, Brooke, to simplify health and wellness because it is so complicated. Like, what should you eat? What should you be doing? Should, whatever. And I'm a health coach and so is she, and I'm a personal trainer. And so I was like, there's got to be an easier way to like empower people to take care of themselves and not get overwhelmed by all of these things that we're hearing and seeing, along with body image and me being a mom of three. Brooke has had some gut health issues like chronic illness type of situation where she's had to see a lot of doctors. And so we're like, how do we have a conversation that's real and honest about how hard it is to take care of yourself? For me, especially as a mom and going through the different seasons of having a newborn and then a toddler and then they're getting older and then who am I and how the hell do I find time for me? Like what does this look like? And so I feel like by trial and error, I've figured it out kind of, and I feel like it's an ongoing growth experience. And so choosing to share that with women, our audience has been a lot of women, our followers, especially on TikTok, have been a lot of women, a lot of people with gut health issues, and a lot of women that really struggle with confidence because it's something that Brooke and I really embody is like how to be confident in your skin and about who you are and about your life, along with how to prioritize taking care of yourself because we do put other people first and it's like our default. And all of our coaching calls are getting back to the basics of like slowing down to even hear what the hell you want and how you want your life to look like because it's tough. And so
it's so tough. Yeah.
So our podcast is Ivy Unleashed that we talk about like taking care of yourself, but then also people's stories of hardship and how they get through it because we feel like sharing the real raw is like what people actually connect with. And so that's why we love following you because it's that honest approach of this isn't always rainbows and sunshine. And if that's all we're sharing, like us as women, we're getting more depressed and anxious because we feel like we need to be at this level as a mom or a person or with beauty standards. And so we're trying to just be human beings and expose also like what we struggle with too.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the biggest thing too. And, I love seeing people get on and expose that part of it, especially because when I've covered this stuff, I've had people reach out to me or comment. I feel like one of the biggest comments I get when I post like a not so fun reel is this makes me not want to be a mom. Like this makes me not want to have kids and things like that. And I obviously don't want that, but sometimes not to say like good, like don't do it. It's more of like, okay, something is happening here. Like good, we're seeing something here and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And hopefully that uncomfortableness is going to create some more conversation that's hopefully going to create change. Like, cause
Exactly.
I always create my stuff in mind. And I'm sure you do that with your kids in mind. Like, I create this for my kids. Like, I want this so that way one day, hopefully we don't need, I mean, I want us to be successful and be needed, but hopefully we aren't needed as much in like the confidence realm.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we aren't needed as much of niche, knocking out time for ourselves and finding that time for ourselves. Maybe it will just be a little bit easier.
Yeah. Well, I think, what you just said is so perfect to think about is like, okay, something I posted triggered something in you. And the best thing you can do is take a minute to think about what it is that's triggering you. This is not about Mary. This is about you. And what beliefs do you have about what you should be as a mom or what it should look like as a mom? And let's start talking about how we all have different experiences and it's not going to be always beautiful and perfect. And that us as moms, we should talk about what we struggle with and let that be okay because it's overwhelming once you get into it. So know some of the things that people struggle with so that you can start thinking about ahead of time about how you can fill your cup up a little bit more so you don't run into the same issue.
Yeah, well, that and have conversations with your spouse and things like that. Even just you saying like, a big portion of your audience is women, same with mine. Like that's our stuff. And I hear that. And I had another guest on the other day who does like coaching in terms of like success in business and time management. And I had asked her, I said, what's the major population of your client base? And she said, it's mostly women. And I said, have you ever had men? And she said, I've had a few. She said, but when I have men, it's completely different in that they're work focused. She said their focus is all mostly work. And she said, it's not to, paint men in a negative way. She said, women, we are stuck a little bit and we are needing this. And sometimes it like frustrates me where I'm like, I wish this wasn't just my audience. Like, I wish that this wasn't the case for us. And it's hard because we're all, I think that's why it's kind of refreshing to see us bringing up this stuff because it is hard. It's not easy. It's not easy just getting into a routine. It's not easy figuring it out. And all of us are kind of stuck and there's so much information and it's so hard to navigate sometimes. And that's why I love hearing about what you're doing because it has to be realistic because it's so much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we can get stuck. And I think that's, I'm obviously a coach, so I help people get unstuck. But I think it's not allowing yourself to stay stuck. Like what can be the next move, right? So for you, like what's the first thing that's going to make you feel like I can do this? Like I'm not so overwhelmed. So is it like cleaning one little closet or getting outside or going for a walk or, what is it that gives you that empowering feeling? Because we can get overwhelmed. Those seasons, like I heard you talking about on your podcast and I felt the same way with being at home with the kids in the summer where it's beautiful. It's fun. It's like what creating memories with your kids all about, but sometimes it's exhausting and you have zero time for yourself and it feels chaotic and then you do feel stuck. And so you get into this new season of like, how can I propel myself forward to create what I want and figure out what that is and not feel so stuck.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Eye-Opening Moments podcasts are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
Yeah, well, I mean, that, and I feel like it's a new season, especially in like the early years. And how old are your kids?
10, 8, and 5.
Okay, so you're starting to just get out of that a little bit. You're still in it, but you're still like, my kids finally just 2 of them just went to school full day. So I'm like, I am literally a brand new human being. It's like the most wild experience ever, especially when you have 3. I'm sure like when you have 2 kids that aren't with you, suddenly you feel like you have no kids with you. It's like 1 kid is no problem anymore. You're like, this is easy. This is fine. But I'm stepping into that. But like the little kid years, you forget how many seasons happen in such a short period of time, because you have like the newborn stage, and then it's especially in that first year, obviously everything's switching. They're developing at different rates. Their nap times are being thrown all over the place. So you go from like, sleeping all day to 3 naps, 2 naps, 1 nap, and then you're stuck there for a little bit. And then your routine is constantly getting uprooted and shifted. And I know you're probably in, I don't know if your kids participate in sports, but like my kids are starting to get involved in that stuff. So now you're in a new season there, and it's just, it's so much that we're just like, we don't even think about. And then we kind of, I know, like you said, it's our default to just, we go to the end of the line with all that stuff. And then we wonder why we feel like shit.
Yep. Totally.
Like, oh, that makes sense.
Oh, Mary, I'm going to pause for a second. There's a little girl at my door that is not looking at we are recording right now. I'm just going to tell her to stop knocking on my door.
You're fine.
I'm sorry. I put this sign out and I've already had this chat. She's like a little cute 8-year-old girl that just loves my 10-year-old. So sorry about that.
No worries. No, God, you're fine. Did your youngest start kindergarten?
Yes, she did, which was like, okay. I thought it would be more of an emotional experience, but it's just, she was fine. And she's super shy and kind of like the clingy one that's like, I don't want to go into the world. But she was like walked in confidently. And so I was expecting this like meltdown and me to be emotional. And it was like, she was fine. And it felt weird. It kind of felt like that nervous feeling. And my husband's like, this is good. Like, let's celebrate. Want to get breakfast? Like, let's celebrate.
Yeah. Well, that's how I was. Oh my God. I cried my eyes out. I cried my eyes out the night before. Even the week leading up, I could tell I was off, because I'm like one of those that sometimes I like compartmentalize my emotions, and then it comes out as anger where I'm like, oh, this is what's going on with you. And then I cried. And then now a week later, I'm like, bye. Like nearly punching you out the door. I'm like, go.
Yeah. I think that's important. That's important too. Those feelings. Yeah. I just was at church and the pastor was talking about fire and anger and how it's like, there's so much more that goes into kindling that fire that we need to address, that it comes out as anger, but like, what are all those things that we're feeling that maybe we haven't let come to the surface, that we haven't discussed with our spouse or ourselves or our kids or whatever it is. And so I think anger is a really interesting one to kind of, not judge yourself for having it. Like, what is this? Because it's powerful and it means something, and it means we care.
I've talked about that before. Yeah. Cause especially with like mom rage. I don't know if you've ever experienced mom rage, but that is like one of the nastiest things I've ever encountered. And no one ever told me about that. Like I was completely blindsided by it, because once you're in it, and I've done a podcast on it, but once you're in it, you see red. Like there is nothing in that moment that could even pull you out of it. And the first time I ever experienced it, I literally was like, what just happened to me? Like you almost blacked out and you're like, oh my God. But I think reframing it, and I've talked to someone about it, is you almost have to thank it in anger. And I saw an amazing quote and I won't remember it, but it was like, your anger is your voice of saying something's off, like something is going on. And instead of pushing back against it and saying, you're bad, I don't want you here, welcome it with open arms, because this is your wake up call. Like this is something that's saying we need to figure this out and move on. And it can be a really healthy thing to be present. And I think it's just like anything. That's why like with, on Instagram and talking about this stuff is, we see the not so pretty parts and we forget that those are so essential. Like they are the thing that makes the really good moments shine even brighter. We need that darkness in order for the stuff to shine even brighter. We need the bad in order to see the good. And it's so difficult sometimes, but I feel like it is a powerful.
Yeah.
thing.
And I think
wonderful.
It's a teachable moment for your kids of like, yeah, I am going to get angry, and yeah, I am going to make mistakes, and I'm not always going to be this picture perfect mom. And, having those standards for yourself, it's dangerous because there's so much shame involved for yourself where, you can teach your kids how to apologize through that after those moments, or just say, I'm working on things too, and this is what it is right now. And so thank you for having grace for me, or listening to me, or sticking with me in the moment where I was really angry. Now I'm taking deep breaths, or, however it is that you're coping through it, to show them like, this is what it looks like to be an imperfect mom. Like we don't have to have our shit together all the time, and we don't, and they don't either.
No, agreed. Agreed. I love that. So in terms of fitness and health, I know you personal train. When did you get involved in all of that, or what was your
Yeah.
push to get involved in
Well,
everything?
I was always a runner growing up and just like an athlete. And I kind of had a dysfunctional home as a child. And so my way of coping and like finding guidance was to get out of my house and join in like organization sports, all those types of things. And was like running always came natural to me. And so I kind of leaned on coaches in high school for that guidance and like parental figure. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to study going into college, but I was like, I feel like it's health. Like I like to be active. This feels good. It comes naturally to me. And so I went into health and wellness and then became a health coach about, I don't know, like 15 years ago. And with that too, I missed athletics after college or after high school. And I was like, what can I do? So I got into marathoning. And so I'm running a marathon in every state. So that's kind of what I do with my own physical health and like challenging myself in that way. And then as far as coaching, I had been working for a corporate wellness company for a long time. And then I had a shift in 2020 where like my husband had said it to me numerous times, like, why don't you can do this on your own. Like you're a great coach. Why don't you get like more money for your great services than like getting a 10% of it and having the man take the rest of the money, for your corporate wellness company. So I read a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert that she just spoke like, yes, there's other people doing what you're thinking about doing. Sure. There's your fear, there's your doubt, but nobody has your voice and your story and your approach in life. Like you are unique. And so if you're feeling a calling to do something, go with it. And if you're feeling some resistance and fear, that's good because it is scary and it is new, but like you have to trust that you're capable of this. And so when I started really thinking about like, what am I good at and what have I heard from other people and what do I feel is like where I shine, why not create a business out of that? And why not help people do what I've done, having kids that now, are all in school. Like those years leading up to this chapter of my life were so hard and so eye-opening as to like what women go through. Like I didn't realize how badass women were until I was one that carried a child and didn't really like being pregnant, but felt like I couldn't talk about it, or had a miscarriage and then you're not supposed to talk about that, or you're supposed to keep it a secret that you're pregnant for 12 weeks. Like why? I'm miserable. I don't feel good. I'm scared. If I lost this baby, wouldn't I want support? Like there's so many things I felt like I couldn't talk about and I couldn't share, that I couldn't like feel confident saying out loud, that I was like, I feel like these are the types of like stories and like tough things that we need to share to kind of go through this together. And so kind of deciding that I'm going to be open about what I've been through and how I'm okay. Like, I feel like I go through hard things and then I am a health coach. So I'm like, what's the next step? And how can I kind of put this in a form on my podcast or with coaching that helps people like have a better life? And whether that's your mental health, your physical health, literally just taking a deep breath at a stoplight can be game changing. Like people just need it simplified because it is overwhelming to take care of yourself, whether it's physically or mentally. And so I just felt that calling, like, okay, I think now I have the capacity. Like when you're in survival mode and you have a newborn, you can't think about like running a marathon, and I did not run during that time. And so I'm just really feeling confident in like my ability to help people through this time and then to kind of start taking ownership of your life. Like in any season, what can you do so that you're okay is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, and that's a huge part. I think that's, and I think especially being, I worked in fitness. I worked more in like the bodybuilding realm of things. I never competed myself, but I worked with a lot of bodybuilders and I worked at gyms that focused on that deeply. So it was definitely a very extreme sport. And the mindset and everything is just incredibly extreme. I come from I like to say disordered eating because I never had like one concrete disorder, but I dabbled in all of them type of thing because I just had such a messed up relationship with exercise and eating and my body image. And so when I entered that and then entered pregnancy and then motherhood and bounce back culture and all of that just noise, it's so hard to navigate. And you almost feel like and for me, what I dealt with was if I let one thing slip, all over, it was all a failure. And what I'm starting to get better at, and I'm good at it, but it's still like that internal battle is, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be a little bit of something.
Totally.
And it can be different at different times, and it's going to be different at different times. And I think for me is coming out of that, it's like, you're not going to be able to maintain most likely the same routine that you had. This is 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I'm not the same person
like you're
that I
hinting
was.
at too, is like, you might be able to hear and then all of a sudden you can't. And so it's like something that we created is called Move with Gold Ivy, where it's a virtual workout platform where it's like, you might only have 10 minutes to dedicate to yourself. And you also might not be ready to do an extreme, I'm going to be a bodybuilder type of situation. So like, let's have some workouts that get your heart rate up, because it's important. Like, you do have to take care of your cardiovascular health and boost your mood and energy, especially if you want to keep up with your kids. You do need to incorporate strength training, especially as women. We all lose our muscle mass as we age, but it's like, thinking about body image, that's another thing I love to talk about is like, let's talk about how much it affects us, what we've seen, what we've heard, what we grew up with in the 90s, what we, listened to. Like, it's devastating. Like what you and I heard and saw as kids in movies and commercials. It's like, and even generations before that, it's like, we're raising children now, and we need to show them that exercise is important and that we do it, we make time for it, but it's not like something to change your body in a way that's like, it has to meet this standard. Right. And so our Move with Gold Ivy platform is to like help you, one, make it convenient, help it make it so you could do it at home, so that if you are around your kids, they can see you doing it. You don't need equipment. But in a way, like what Brooke and I talk about is not like having this perfect body or this perfect anything. It's like, let's connect our mind and body. They're one. And if we're not taking care of one, the other one's going to fall to the wayside. So how can we feel good about what we're doing, feel good about getting stronger, and not worry about bulking up or whatever? And it's a tricky balance. And especially with it's what so you mentioned, like so many people have had disordered eating or have been in inpatient treatment centers and have never even talked about it.
No. Yeah. Well, and I think for me, so I again, like coming out of this season of like having all 3 kids home at the same exact time, and like I'm stepping now into the new chapter of things, which is nice. And daily I've been trying to commit. I've missed a few days, but that's just because I get over a cold. But I like trying to walk every single day 2 miles, and that's literally what I'm starting with. And I've been avoiding working out because I know myself very, very, very well. And I'm trying to rewrite the script in my brain, because even before I got pregnant with my third, I got in probably the best shape ever. It was during the pandemic. It was during everything when we're home. I mean, I was in pretty good shape before I got pregnant, but I think I was even better shape than that. But it started to teeter right before I got pregnant. And I knew it, where it was cutting out meals. And I started weighing myself a little bit more often and noticing that like trend on the scale going down, and I loved it. And you don't catch it at first, especially when you're so used to that thinking. You don't catch it until you start to. And thank God I got pregnant when I did, because I didn't keep up with that. I was so sick and just eating whatever I could, like white rice all the time. But now coming out of that season, I know myself well enough at this point where I'm like, if you start working out, you're going to start wanting to weigh yourself. You're going to start wanting to track your food. And not that it's bad stuff. Like I think some people can do that very controlled. I can't. And so I've been like, okay, you're going to start slow, because you are just tippy-toeing back into this, because I know myself. It is like you said, our generation, there is a lot to unwrite.
Well, I love talking about the scale too. Like it's great that you know your relationship with it, like that you felt that teetering, because a lot of people, they just blindly go back into those habits because our brain is wired that way. Right. And so to shift that takes a lot of intentionality, and to be aware of like, oh, I'm doing the thing again, and this didn't go well last time. Right. And so, I mean, I would say the majority of my clients, they want to see it change on the scale. They do want to see their body composition change. They want to look better. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I always ask people like, what action am I taking and why? Like, what is this number giving me? Right? Because first of all, the number, it doesn't depict what you're doing in real time, right? You could have the awesomest week of exercise and it's not going to show instantly. And then that discourages you, right? Like, what feeling am I getting from stepping on it? Like, how often do I feel good when I'm on this thing? And then if I do, like you said, like you were seeing results, like, but what does that mean for me? Like, what value am I getting from seeing it go down? Like, is it a wholesome feeling? Is it something that makes me feel like, you know, I need to cut out more? Like, I need to deprive myself more? Is it like, and just, I feel like digging into that relationship is really important because it can be detrimental to your health. And you've seen it. And a lot of people have seen it, that it's this obsession, and it's not worth to feel crappy about yourself all the time. It's like, if this scale is doing that to you, then why are we looking at it? Because you can see results in different ways.
Yeah. I got rid of it. I ditched it.
Yeah.
I ditched it. I threw it out. I went out. I actually had, I did a collaboration, and this was during the time that I was just not healthy. And I did a collaboration, and I forget what they're called. It's a certain type of scale, and I forget, but you step on the scale, and there's like a big brand that you'll see all over, but you step on it and it does like all your body composition. I forget what it's called, but they had an app, and you would do it. And I don't know how accurate it all was, but it was pretty spot on. And I loved it because it would track, and you would see that, like, the graph and everything, and you'd see like your muscle mass and your body fat, blah, blah, blah. But then it would send you a text message every single morning at 7:30 a.m. saying, have you weighed yourself? And I was like, this, and I finally like came out of that, like this past year in January, I was like, what is this? Like, why am I doing this? And I was like, bye, like, get out of here. And I got rid of it because I'm like, I'm going off of my clothes. I have to do that because I've always been someone, I think for me, it's a control thing. I've always I know if I unravel all of it, it's if I lose and if I look a certain way, if I weigh a certain thing or certain number, everything's going to come together.
Yeah.
And it never does. And the mark keeps moving. And I've experienced it for the last almost 20 years of my life where I'm like, at some point, give up. It's been 20 years. Like, it hasn't come together yet, and it never will. So just chill out and have fun. Like, find that balance of being able to like go out with your friends, but also like, eat what you want and not overeat, and just work out because it feels good, not because you need to.
Yeah. I mean, it has so much to do with our value. Like, am I valuable if I'm this weight? And it's like, people have this number in mind, and if it's above it, then they're not valuable or worthy or fill in the blank. And it's just, it does so much harm, but we saw our parents doing it, or it's just like in every bathroom. I'm like, why is this here? Like, weigh yourself at the doctor if they make you, or if you do want a benchmark and you do want a goal, okay, fine. But like, I always try to give the rule of like max once a week. And like, if you've gained weight, you can feel it with your pants. Like you said, it's clothes. Like, you can feel it. There's seasons. And I think part of that too, I'm learning, is like acceptance a little bit of like, yes, we can challenge ourselves and realize, okay, I need to prioritize exercise more, whatever it is. But there's seasons too where it's tough to like have these really healthy, beautiful meals when you're running around all summer with 3 kids, and like there's more alcohol or celebrations or whatever it may be, that there are seasons for that. And that I know every summer I'm going to gain about 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And then I know I'm going to be like, okay, I need to run a marathon at the end of the year, and then it'll come off. But like, if I sat around thinking about that, I would not be the joyous, energetic person I would just feel so depleted. And I think the way that you're tuning into yourself, it sounds like you have a lot of self-awareness of like, I know this cycle. Yeah. I know where this is going and how it feels. And like, what a gift to your kids that you're this aware when they're this little, so you don't perpetuate that cycle.
Yeah. I grew up with it. I grew up with it. My mom's a great mom, but my mom is definitely she's a product of her generation. She totally is. Like, I can remember Weight Watchers, like Weight Watchers, just like, I knew how many points were in an Oreo when I was 11. And I don't know if it was because I heard things, and then even just my friend group, like all the kids that I grew up with, like all the girls we grew up, all of our moms were always on diets. Like, all of our moms were talking about stuff like that, where it was just constant, like talking on and on and on. And especially when it hits like during puberty, and like, it is just so much where I think back on that and I'm like, I have 2 girls, and I'm like, I will be damned. And it scares me sometimes. I actually talked about it on Instagram, and I don't know if you saw it, or did I talk about it on the podcast? Maybe not, but I talked about it where my husband brought my oldest to the pool. She brought my two oldest kids to the pool, and my girls. And I think the biggest thing that concerns me is my girls take after my husband in terms of their body. They've always, since all my babies have been 99th percentile babies in height, head, weight, all of them. And they've tracked consistently. And that's just most likely going to be their body
Composition.
What word am I looking for? That's totally fine. That's so great. I stress about it because it's different than mine. And I want to make sure that I am prepared in making sure that they are feeling comfortable in their body and things like that. And I was saying my oldest has always looked older. So they're not overweight. They just look older than they are. They're taller than they are. And my oldest daughter went to the pool, and some little girls, two of them who I want to say are like 7 and 9, she was playing with the 7-year-old, and the 9-year-old came over, and I guess she wasn't happy that her sister was playing with my daughter. And she said, "How old are you?" And my daughter's 5 and a half. And she said, 5. And she said, "There's no way that you're 5. How much do you weigh?" And started asking my daughter how much she weighs.
Oh,
And my husband, I wasn't there, but my husband heard it, and he said it wasn't nice. So I'm just only repeating verbatim, but he said it wasn't nice. And you could tell that it wasn't being asked in a, like, you're tall for your age, like a whatever. It was like a mean. And so he grabbed my daughter out of there, and he just kind of like said, "Hey, come over here." And then they left and came home, and he told me, and I literally was like about to go like overboard when he said that, because it was just like, this is bullshit. And I I'm not going to do anything. They're little girls. My husband didn't do anything. It almost broke my heart, because chances are they're probably hearing it at home, like especially from a 9-10-year-old girl. You're picking that up from either home or your surroundings. And I talked about it because I'm like, it's such a hard, I can do everything in my power to influence that here in my home. And we don't talk about that stuff. And when we go to the doctor's office, I have told my doctor, like, unless there is a concern, please don't talk about this in front of my kids. Like, I don't want BMI stuff. Like, I don't want them with weight, with numbers and scales. I make them step on backwards, and I'm just going to make that the mark starting now for my kids, where it's just the norm, where there's no questions asked. It's not weird. Just, that's how you do it. But I do everything here, but I'm like, I realize, like, there's not much I can do when they get out into the world and hear from others. And it sucks.
Yeah. I did a reel on this the other day where I was heated like you, where it's like, I heard something that, one of my daughter's friends was called fat on the bus.
Yeah.
And it just like triggered this, like, I need to know that the mothers and fathers in my neighborhood that my kids are around when they're not with me know how I feel about this, because I'm so passionate about body image, and like, I'm scared like you, like, we are creating these humans in the world that we are like so hopeful that they won't have body image issues, but like, who knows with social media and these types of things now, what's going to happen. And so I'm like, we need to record an episode on this right now on body image, where I need every parent to know, like, you are speaking about your body in front of your kids who look like you, probably.
Yeah.
And they're hearing you talk poorly about your body that looks like their body. And they're seeing this practice of what you're saying, and that this becomes the valuable thing to think about, to focus on. You walk in a room and you're with your kids, and someone says, "Oh, look how skinny you look." Like, of course they're going to focus on that because that's what's getting attention for you. And it's just like, I need all parents to know that we need the attention on anything else. Like, do not make a comment about their body. Do not make a comment. Like, it is not important. And then they're not even thinking about it. And then all of a sudden they feel like they are, because that's what everybody is focusing on. Like, that's the valuable thing.
Yeah.
And, like you said, we can do everything in our power. It scares the shit out of me. I'm like, what are people saying on the bus now? What are people saying? And so I just coach my 10-year-old, like, bodies are going to start changing. They're learning about that in school, and she's learning about it now, where it's like, let's not make comment about other people's bodies. Yeah. And if you're feeling any sort of way, that's something you need to talk about, like, talk with me or ask me about it. But you making comments about your friends' bodies, like, it can really make them insecure and can change your relationship, where, it's a tricky thing. And
it's such and people sometimes don't even understand how massive this conversation is, like how critical this conversation is. Like, I would even, it is critical. Like, that's what I like to market, because it's, especially with our little kids. And I've talked about this before in a podcast. It was like confidence is like literally the foundation for every choice that they're going to make for the rest of their life, from the foods that they eat to the clothes that they wear to the people that they surround themselves with. And if they have like not as much confidence in themselves and that uncomfortableness of figuring themselves out, that identity portion, they're going to latch themselves onto people in hopes of figuring it out. And the people they could latch themselves onto may not be the best. And that's where like you want to have that piece in there, because I went through that. So like I'm always open with that. And I've talked about that before. I made a goofy reel like almost 2 years ago where I was making coffee. I don't know if you ever saw this. I was making coffee, but I made it look like I was cutting the stevia that I put in my coffee so it looks like cocaine. And I go like this afterwards. And it's just to say it's for coffee. I literally just talk about coffee, but I do it. And I said how to spot a mom with a past. And it was all a joke. But people in the comments were like, your kids are going to see this one day. And now your kids are going to think that they have like an automatic in to like start this stuff. And I was like, quite the opposite. I was like, I am planning on being, I mean, I'm not going to be honest about every darn portion of my life, but I'm going to be honest about those not so pretty moments, because I'm like, they should know the poor decisions I made because they're bad decisions. And hopefully that's the whole point of them, is they weren't good. Let's fix them and learn from them. And it was because I didn't know who I was. I wasn't confident in myself and I didn't like the way I looked. And, you just, it's such a big critical piece that I think parents really are missing. So,
yeah. Well, and I think too, like with your past and you being open about disordered eating, I think it's really important to see like it's not always this big obvious thing of why it happens, right? It's these tiny, like, I don't want to say like microaggressions, but like that type of thing is like a micro comment, a micro thing that over time builds up and creates this monster. And then confidence is just shot. And like you said, it becomes this internal thing where we think it's about what we look like. And of course it's important to feel good in your skin or whatever, but it all goes back to like, okay, this is now they're looking out for these relationships that don't fulfill them, right? Because they need this affirmation of what their body looks like, because that's the focus. But it's like they can never get that confidence piece because they're focusing on the wrong part. Like the part to focus on, it's an internal job, right? You have to think about what's important to you, what you value about yourself to get that worth, to think about like, I am valuable to be here no matter what I'm wearing, no matter how much makeup I have, no matter how much weight I've gained or lost. Like I'm valuable and I will attract that in other people and people that value me because they see it in me. And so those boundaries are so important to have, to say like, I refuse to be treated this way. But it starts with that self-respect, right? Of knowing your worth. And if all we're talking about is what we look like, they're never going to find that confidence. They're never going to know what it comes down to is following through with what you know is important to you, because that's what confidence is. And that's why, I love talking about it so much, is because it's your mental health. Like we have to start talking more about our mental health and taking care of it, especially as women, because we cannot be confident in our skin or anything we're doing if we're never tuning into what we want and then following through on those things. Even if it's, I'm a mom and I'm busy, but 5 minutes a day, I'm going to think about what I want or align on my values or set a goal or get outside or whatever it is to build that momentum. So it's a priority and your kids can see that.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Because it's been painted. It's been painted as a bossiness. It's been painted as selfishness. It's been painted as so many things that it's not. And it's just so hard to navigate, especially for moms. I'm sure you encounter it with your client base. It's like that working out. I've been, I actually was going to record earlier and she lost power and whatever, but we were chatting for like 5 minutes before all that happened. And it's someone from TikTok that I met, and I did a stitch of her because she was a mom and she's wearing like this dress, and she talks about why she gets up and gets dressed daily, and people crapped all over her and just tore her to shreds in the comment section. And they all basically were calling her not a real mom. And like, this is not a real mom. Simply because that's how she dresses. And she's a working mom. She owns 2 boutiques, like things like that. They have no idea about her story other than the fact that she doesn't look like what everyone dubs to be the typical mom. And the picture has been painted that the mark of a good mom is a mom that feels like shit. The mark of a good mom is one that's given up every darn thing. But then at the end of the day, when we do that and now we feel like crap and, we might think we look like crap and we're not the same person anymore because we've completely disassociated ourselves with who we were, then we're told that we've lost ourselves and that we're no longer the same. We're not fun anymore. And then we're all just lost. And it's just
right. Oh, I was at the park the other day with my daughter, and there was this grandma that was taking care of her child, and she was pushing in the swing. And I talked about something that my husband did, or like I was like, oh, he's home, he's cleaning something, or something that was like clearly to her a mom's job. And she was like, oh my gosh, in my 40 years of marriage, my husband never picked up a dish. He never did a diaper, whatever. But like, she was kind of bragging about it. Like it was this badge of honor. I was like, oh, how's your relationship with him? Like, are you still married? And she was like, yeah, but not happily. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So it was like the resentment. Yeah. It's like the resentment she's built up. Like she's bragging about these things because like, that's what our culture does. But she can't stand her husband. She has all this resentment, but she still feels like that's her job. It's like, at what point are we going to be honest? Like, this isn't working. Like if we don't have a partnership that serves us both and that we both feel like is this balance. And it's never 50-50. I don't think it.
No,
I feel like there's seasons where one carries more than the other, or you have more value in one thing than the other at a certain time. But she was pissed. She's been married for 40 years, but man, she like, when she was talking about it, it was like, how's this going? Like, having this badge of honor. It's not going well.
No. And I think it's hitting I think we're hitting the tip of the iceberg with it, because I think that's why, I think we're one of my guests said it. I think she said we're generation, God, what did she say? A generation share it all or something. I forget what she said, but it was, and I was like, yeah, we basically are. Like there is just like no sugarcoating it anymore. And it is so uncomfortable for some people. Like I said, like that's the reason why I started this, was like, I wanted to show both, because I think you do see, like on one end, you see the accounts that are incredibly negative, where it's like, my husband sucks, my kids are annoying, this all sucks. And I think that there is a place for that, because there are times where that certainly happens with every single couple, every single mom. And then there's the flip side of everything is peachy keen and everything is roses and gold and rainbows and my child is perfect and my husband's perfect and I'm the incredible like type of thing. And that's not realistic either. And we're just so lost in that middle where it's like something's got to give at this point, because I think we're seeing that like moms are, we want this to be better, but I think that's why we're even seeing the next generation, like Gen Z and people who are coming up in the ranks are kind of like, I don't want to do this. Like, this doesn't look fun. And we're like, yeah, well, it hasn't really been fun for a lot of us.
Yeah.
We're glad you're seeing that now. We're trying to fix that.
Yeah. Well, I think the key that you're highlighting here is connection, right? Like these reels can't give you the full picture. They just can't. And like, I love what you do. You just posted a reel where it was like you holding, you're pretending you're holding this baby and you're keeping it all together. And then all of a sudden it goes gray and it's like, but like, really, this is how I feel inside. And so you do a great job, I think, of capturing both, but I think you can never truly, like, people are going to be triggered by it because they're feeling so heavy in one direction or the other. And I feel like the more that we can like ask each other more questions, help each other out, like, man, you're really good at that thing. Like you get dressed up every day. Like, what's that do for you? What does that bring for you? Like, maybe it doesn't hit home for me because I'm most of the time disheveled looking and don't care. But like, could it bring me something if maybe I poured 5 extra minutes to like do my self-care routine more often? Because like, oh, maybe she's onto something. Like if we find that piece that we can connect on.
Conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
it sparks conversation. And that's what I said when in regards to this person that I brought on, and I'd stitched one of her reels, and because the comments were just awful. And I was like, enough. Like enough. Like, and people in the comments were like, well, she probably has like 5 nannies and she probably has all the help in the world. And I was like, so what if she does? Shouldn't we celebrate that? Like, shouldn't we celebrate the moms there are moms that are probably thriving and doing very well. And that might come from resources. That might come from, family support. There are moms that have a better advantage than others. And we should be able to celebrate them and validate their story and it doesn't take away from yours, and it doesn't make yours any worse. It doesn't make hers better. It just, it's all, you know, there's a common thread amongst all of us, and it's out there because like there was someone like that. I don't know about you, but like the 0 to 1 switch to me wasn't too terrible when I had my first. It wasn't as abrupt. Like it was a lot, obviously, but it wasn't as hard hitting. I didn't feel like my second, because it was during the pandemic and everything, it just rocked my world. Like I'm pretty sure I had undiagnosed postpartum depression because I was a mess of a person. But again, pandemic, I couldn't do anything about it. It was just a terrible, terrible thing. But I know with that, like there was someone I saw at the time because I bought into the whole martyrdom thing. I remember being in a shower one day, and I looked down at my body and I was like, it's fine. Like you're allowed to feel like shit about yourself. And then I stopped afterwards and I was like, wait, what? Like, why? Why am like, this is what a good mom should look like. And I was like, wait, this is kind of crappy. Like, why is that my default thinking? And it just, you know, there was someone I saw that I think it was maybe making your bed every day, something like that. And that was a game changer for me. And so I figured out new non-negotiables for myself. And those non-negotiables have always shifted. Like they always move. And I think that's what people forget is like you're juggling a multitude of balls. Those balls are always going to change which ones you're juggling. And that just became a non-negotiable, and it changed something in me. And that's why I think it's so important just to have a conversation about like that stuff, because even working out, like stuff like that, you know, not everyone wants to run a marathon. Like not everyone wants to do what you do, but it could spark someone to find what makes them feel good. Like maybe it's walking.
Yeah. And from what you're saying too, like we can be pissed that someone is getting dressed up or someone has help or someone's running a marathon or good for you, must be nice, you know, or we can see like, what is it in me that's making me feel this way? Right? Like those questions you're asking yourself in the shower, like, where are these even coming from? Are these even my thoughts? Like, what did I read, see, take in from social media somewhere that makes me feel this way? Like, do I actually feel like I don't look good? Like, do I feel like what's the standard I'm trying to be at? Because these thoughts we have, a lot of times they're recycled thoughts that we can kick to the curb, or we heard it from somewhere else and it's not even the truth, you know? And so with coaching, like so much of what I do is getting to like, what's the truth here? And how do I actually want to feel? Do I want to be focusing on this? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, like kick it to the curb. Let's focus on something that makes me feel like maybe I do have a little bit more control there. I can make my bed. And then I feel like, okay, I did that. That looks nice. Okay. And being organized in this room, you know, let that waterfall somewhere else. Use it as kind of that anchor of like, I am capable of making a shift that makes me feel good. What's next? And maybe, you know, then your kids run in the room. You don't have any time to yourself for the next 3 hours, but then there's nap time. And then during this time, I'm going to drink a freaking glass of water or like drink my hot coffee, or, you know, it's just like these little pockets of time, especially as moms, they are crucial that we center ourselves and don't go in autopilot, because at the end of the day, you're exhausted either way. You might as well, in these small pockets of time, like either figure out how you want to feel and what that next move is. Okay, I'm focusing on my body a lot. Like, okay, how do I want to feel better about it? And what is that? Is that food? Is that water? Is that rest? Is that sleep? Is that getting outside? Like, what is it that I can do so I don't stay in this feeling? Because it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it does suck. No one wants to be stuck in that forever. And it's hard to break out of, because sometimes it feels like you're just stuck in it. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's small. It has to be small little changes. I know it's like me walking. Like it's literally that. I'm just starting to walk. And then after that, we're just going to see where it takes me and go on from there. But
well, yeah, I think about you too, though. Like you have a tricky situation. I know you said your husband's a police officer, and like to think about, you know, a lot of people's spouses are like working from home, and like it's a little bit easier to ask for help or have like some flexibility. Like I think, you know, people that have less flexibility to delegate, like they really struggle asking for help from a friend or somebody that's not their spouse. But it's so important. Like that chick that maybe she does have a team of people, but hey, she's good at asking for help, or knowing it's important, or like knowing that you can set your ego aside and be like, hey, like maybe if I ask for help, I'll have a second to myself and I can be a better mom this afternoon by taking like an hour to ask so-and-so who's offered 6 times across the street to watch my kids. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I just see if they can take my kids to the park with them when they're walking, and I can like catch up on whatever I need to do.
Yeah. 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 No, it's hard. I actually was getting into my stories the other day, and I didn't because I was running around, but I went out with Haley, my youngest, and we went to like a little hardware store, and I picked up this big like storage container, and I had that plus paint and like other stuff in my cart. And we're in New Jersey. We don't have bags anymore. So I completely forgot the bags. So now I'm just with the baby in a cart and a big storage container. We're at checkout. And the guy at the front, rang me up, and I just looked at him and I was like, can you help me carry this out? Or can someone help me carry this out? Because I was like, my initial thinking was like, I'm just going to handle all of it. I'll figure out a way and we'll make it work. And I just looked at him, I was like, can someone carry this out? And he was like, absolutely. And there was like 10 people behind me. And thankfully, because I think we as moms, we feel like such a burden to society in that we move at a slower pace. We are a little bit messier. Like it is a little bit more chaotic, and we've been made to feel bad about that when it's just the way it is. It's just naturally how it is. But we've been made to feel bad about it where we don't ask for help because we're afraid of being perceived that way. And I was just like, screw it. I asked. And the people in the line were so kind. And I had like 2 people being like, you take your time. And I was so thankful for it. But the more you do it, the easier it is to keep going. And not only that, what I have found is it makes me more willing to offer help to others. And it's a whole chain reaction. So it's not as crucial for you. It's crucial for everyone, this whole help line, because it reminds you of how good that feels. So now you're going to want to offer that to someone else, especially, moms helping moms. That's how it was designed to do. We're just not used to it anymore. So we've stopped.
Well, and that's just proof too, like most people are good. Like most people want to help. Like we get worried about that 1 out of 100 that's going to be the dick in the line. That's like, come on, but like the rest of the people in the line are going to think he's a dick. Like people want to help. Like people have been parents. Like they know that tantrum in the line, like it's the freaking worst. But like, most people don't nod and they're like, it's okay. Like most people want to help you out. And so, it's what people, I think women struggle with the most is like delegating. Like it's that ego of like wanting to be able to do it all, but it's not good for your kids to see either. They need to see you ask for help. They need to know that when you're struggling, it's okay to tell someone, whether it's your best friend or your spouse or whatever, that you're not okay, because we don't need to keep this cycle going. Like they need to see you ask a stranger, like, hey, would you mind helping me get this to my car? Like then they're going to be able to ask for help. It's like, if we just figure out how to like get a little uncomfortable and start the cycle, we'll all get that permission step that we're kind of waiting for to lean on each other a little bit more. And then we'll be more connected to each other too.
Yeah. Yeah. So for everyone listening, start asking and offering. It's so hard. It's so hard. I know most people are probably listening right now, and I'm sure there's someone that's going to be listening in their car and being like, oh, not me. Not me. I'm not going to do it. It's I don't know. I don't know it. You're not going to win a medal.
I would ask that person though, that person that's resisting it. I would invite you to take a little inventory of your resentment. How much resentment are you carrying around because people aren't helping or doing more, or you're expecting them to give as much as you give? Like we don't have to give this much all the time. Like we're getting burned out. We're getting anxious. We're overwhelmed. Like we do so much, like everybody, not just moms. Like we are doing too much. Everybody is. And so like, just take a deep breath to think about like, okay, if I was going to ask for help and just take something off my plate, like who would be the person it would be the easiest to ask, and just practice with them and then offer it to them. Or maybe you start by telling your best friend, like, hey, I want to get in better practice with asking for help. So like, I'm going to start with you. Like, what could I help you with first? Maybe this is an easier way for me to go about it.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I love this. This conversation is so good. It's literally what we all need. I think it's a big conversation because it's again, we talked about the confidence portion, but that boils into asking for help too. It's all of it. It literally is the foundation for everything, because us asking for help, it all boils back to how we value ourselves and whether or not we're worthy of asking for that help. So
well, I think too, like, and I feel like I keep saying this about you, but I feel like it comes down to honesty. Like, are you being honest with yourself? Are you being honest with the people around you? Are you being honest about like, how am I even doing? Am I even taking 5 minutes a day to know how I'm doing? Checking in with myself? Like, when is the last time I sat still when I was awake and like asked myself how I'm doing? You know, and I just think people like you are so valuable to, you might get some flack for it, but like being honest that this is not always roses. Like it's tough to be a mom. And the more that we can be honest about, you know, how much body image affects us or how much we're struggling to ask for help, like these conversations are so necessary so that we can kind of like level up as far as, you know, our mental health. Like it's struggling so much across the board, all ages, all genders. It's something that we like cannot ignore anymore.
No. Literally, the statistics on it are like astounding when you start seeing more and more of it. Like even I think it's like 88% of moms are think it's important to be perfect. And I'm like, what? No, no, it's not. Why? It's hard. It really is, but it's uncomfortable. And it's important to, it's uncomfortable at first. And I've talked about this on previous episodes too. And I actually had a therapist come on and I asked her about it. And I said, what makes it so uncomfortable is because we're so not used to it that you're going to get pushback, and you're going to get pushback, not online and things like that, where I get it, but in your circle, because you don't know who in your circle are going to be comfortable with that yet. But the only way to weed out the people that are and find your safe spots is to do that. And you will find them. You will find those people that you can go to and unleash the crap. And there are some people that you just need to do that to. But it's the whole name it to tame it. And that's the only way that we're ever going to do it. We need to just say it like it is, and then not harp on it. Yeah. But
when you want genuine, authentic connection with the people that you do connect with the most. So if you're feeling nervous about asking them for help or being honest about how you're struggling, like that's a good indicator. Like, okay, maybe should this person even be in my circle if I can't talk to them about the truth of how I'm feeling? Like, I feel like that should be a big red flag of like, who's in my circle that I can be truly honest with and be vulnerable and show them I don't have my shit together all the time. And if I can't show them that side of me, like that's not a true friendship. It's not, it's something that, it's not going to serve you in the long run.
Agreed. Well, I love this conversation. We could keep on going forever. I might just have to have you come back on because this is wonderful. So for everyone listening, I'm going to link all the information for Andrea in the show notes because I think this is just amazing with social media pages. I would highly encourage you to go follow and listen to the podcast and everything. And this is just, it's good. This is what we need. We need conversations like this. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I love the work that you do. And I just say, just keep it up. And if you're ever feeling like people are coming at you too hard, you have a lot of women that have your back that know it's important to show these not so pretty sides of us all the time.
Another episode down. Thank you all so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, I would be so appreciative if you would leave a rating and review. I cannot begin to tell you how much those mean to me, but also how much they help me get in front of more eyes and more ears. As always, be sure to check back every Tuesday and Friday for a new episode, whether it's an episode with me and my husband, me and Katie, or just another incredible, amazing guest. Stay tuned for more honest, real, raw chit chat. And hey, do me a favor before you go. Remind yourself how amazing you are, how enough you are, how special you are. And boy, oh boy, I sure am glad to have you here. Thanks, friend.